Okay, there we go. So as Joel said, my name is Denise Hemke. I lead our product management and strategy team here at Workday for analytics. And before we get kind of to the fun stuff, let me get it out of the way, like some of the, some of the logistics. So first, I want to say, thank you all. In even just the brief, limited time that I've been able to network with some of you women tonight, I've met some really amazing women, some really incredible women that are on, different points in their career journey, which is, thrilling to hear. And it's just very inspiring to see such, a room full of women and a few men. Thanks, Nitin, and a couple other gentlemen here for joining us tonight. And I do also want to thank AWIP for putting this together. So through this process, I've gotten to know this organization a little bit, Advancing Women in Product, and the people behind it. And it really is incredible to see an organization that has such a great goal, right? It's all about upskilling all of us. We all are continuing to grow in our career, and really about creating mentorship opportunities. And at the end of the day, it's all about giving equal opportunity to all of us. And I think that that is an incredible goal, and love, being able to participate with them tonight and supporting that. So, one last logistics. I don't plan to talk about any product roadmap. My team, we're not talking about product roadmap, but I know that some of you are Workday customers, and I know some of you might be Workday prospects, so I am obligated to share our safe harbor slide and remind you that, all purchase decisions should be made on existing products. All of my product management skills. All right, so as I said, I am Denise, and really this evening is about kind of understanding data and really asking you to question, should you fly blind into the land of product management? So to do that, I want to start by telling a little story. So I have a toddler, Charlotte. She's 2.5 years old. She is my pride and joy. And as I shared in my bio, I spend many an evening engaged in imaginative play, everywhere from pirates to firefighters to princesses to apparently butterflies. And when I say engaged in imaginative play, it is not just Charlotte who is dressing up. It is me and Charlotte running around our house, engaged in whatever costume of choice. But I'm still newish to motherhood. And so, we were going through our annual kind of vacation planning this summer, as everybody typically does. And like any good product manager, I had to stop and think for a minute, hey, life has changed a little bit. So what are my requirements, right? And so my requirements really for our vacation this summer were, number one, needs to be toddler friendly. This is a new world I've entered into. Number two, good food. And number three, my husband, Adam, likes to go rock climbing. He goes every week, typically goes indoor rock climbing, hasn't done outdoor rock climbing in 20 years, he tells me. I didn't know him in those days, but he wanted to go rock climbing. So those were our requirements, those three things. And yes, like any good product manager, those are in priority order. So after, doing some Googling and discussion, we settled on Maine. There were lots of family-friendly activities. We could eat our weight in lobster, and he could go rock climbing. And so he had kind of his heart set on going rock climbing in Acadia National Park. And so off we went to Maine. So we hired a guide so that somebody could go out there with Adam for the day, because I still think Charlotte may be a little young for rock climbing. And so, this is actually a photo that I took in the distance after Charlotte and I had kind of gone our merry ways to do something else, of where he was actually going climbing. And so, but before we did that, the four of us walked out there together, me, Adam, Charlotte, the guide, to check out where he would be climbing for the day, just in case this was like my last hurrah knowing him. And what you really can't tell from this photo, but is that these little specks here, these are actually the climbers. So, and what you really can't even tell from this photo is that unlike traditional rock climbing, where you go indoors and you face the wall, or you go outdoors and you face the rock, like you look at your opponent, right? And then you climb up it. This is actually climbing down a cliff. And so what he recounted for me after that was that the guide, who climbs here every day, throughout that season, said to him, well, Adam, I'm going to ask you to go sit over there on the edge of the cliff and just lean over and rappel down, and then you will be fine, and you will climb up. And he, telling me this story later, he's like, wow, Denise, I wasn't going to do that. Like, he asked me to basically do the thing that, like, your parents tell you never to do. If somebody told you to jump off a cliff, should you, would you? And that's what this guy told him to do. And so he looked at the guy and he said, like, there has to be another way. Like, I'm not going to go jump over this cliff. And so I was interested, like, what was the deal? You climb all the time. And he's like, when I climb indoors, right, I can see where I'm going. I can plan my route. I can know that I'm safe. I can know what I'm doing. And I needed to have that visibility in order to feel confident that I was going to be successful. And so that resonated with me, because here my husband was doing something that hundreds of people, thousands of people have done, right? It's not like he's climbing in like some new uncharted territory. We had hired a guide. He had all this safety equipment, that can hold the weight of a car, he always likes to remind me. And this is not a route that changes, right? This is literally stone. So this is a very well-known route. And yet he was not comfortable doing this blindly, right? Flying blind over the edge of the cliff. And yet we, as enterprise product managers, a lot of times are comfortable doing just that, right? A lot of times we will deliver new product. We will venture out into unknown territory. We will maybe not have product market fit yet. And we will have not really thought about, how do we measure success? And what does success even look like, or have the ability to actually measure it? And so to me, that is one of those things that I continue to ponder. And it's different, right, in enterprise product management. So it's why I highlight that enterprise is a bit different. Because in the world of consumer, you have to have data, you have to have instrumentation, because oftentimes you don't get to interface with your end user a lot, right? You don't really know them. And so you have to have data to know what they are doing with your product. And in the world of an enterprise, we get relationships, right? We get design partner groups. Well, maybe we get to talk to CSMs and talk to customers directly. But that is anecdotal. That is one-off, right? That is not data. And so how do you make data-driven decisions? How do you make sure your product is getting adopted if you don't do all of these things? So that is what these amazing women are going to talk to you about tonight. And before I get to that, though, I'm sure that there are some of you that are not familiar with Workday. And so I want to take just a couple of more minutes to talk about Workday. So what is Workday? It is enterprise software. Surprise, surprise. I said it a couple times. And it's cloud-based. And so what do we provide our customers? We provide our customers products for finance and products for HR. So I'll explain it in terms that we can all probably relate to. But everybody has submitted an expense report, right? So those expenses ultimately roll up, and they roll up, in part into your company's financial statements, right? Their financial reporting. And so those are the transactions part, or one example of the transactional part of the financial side of the house. On the HCM side of the house, right, we all work somewhere, we've all been hired, we've all hopefully been promoted or soon to be, we've all changed jobs, so we interact with these systems every day. And so HR is something that typically people can really relate to. But what Workday does really uniquely, really differently, is we enable our customers to plan from a financial perspective, from a people perspective about their workforce, then actually execute the transactions, and then us in analytics, we enable them to analyze those transactions all in a single system. Many other competitors out there, you'd kind of have to use some duct tape and glue and a couple systems to pull that off. And what that enables our customers to do is to be agile, right, with their business, to move quickly, because it happens all in a single system. So, who are our customers? These are household brands that you love probably many of them. You're very familiar with them. They're often many of the Fortune 100, Fortune 500, brands that are near and dear to your heart, maybe brands that you work at. And what's amazing, I think, about our customers, which I personally enjoy as a product manager, is a partnership, right? That I find as a product manager, they're willing to participate in design partner groups and early adopter programs, and that is incredible. Now, for those women in the room who are already in enterprise product management, you may say, so what? So do my customers. But what I think our customers do that is unique, that I, again, really enjoy, is their willingness to share with each other, right? Just like we're sharing with you guys tonight, rising tides raise all boats. They do that for each other, and I find that to be really impressive. So that leads me to kind of one last point about Workday, and then I'll turn it over, which is about the company. So these words up here, these actually represent our core values. And our core values at Workday, you'll notice that there's two of them that I think that we hold closest to us, which is customer service, right? Customers, I just talked about that, and employees. And I've worked at many places that will tell you, oh, yes, we put employees first. Employees are really important to us, but I think, again, we are very unique here. And I'll share one more personal story in a room full of mostly women, which is, I came from a startup that was acquired by Workday a little over 3 years ago. And right after that acquisition, I said, hey, guess what? I'm pregnant, right? And so it changed something in me, right? It made me look at things just a little bit differently. And so what I started to do is I started to look around and look at what success looked like at this company that I just joined. Right? And because I wanted to know, could I be successful here? And what I saw was a lot of females in leadership. And that is still unique. As Joel said, 1 in 10 women of leadership positions are occupied typically by a female. And so that is unique. And not only was it just women in leadership, but it was moms. And so to me, that level of diversity that I saw females in leadership and mothers in leadership positions told me that I could have the career of my dreams here at Workday and do all of these amazing things that I want to do, and that is why I'm here. So with that, I'll turn it over to these incredible women.
Thank you. Hey everyone, can you hear me okay? Awesome. Thank you, Denise. Do you want to join me? I'm Manogna Bhargav. I'm an analytics product manager here at Workday, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be in this room full of women. Really, really exciting.
Hi everyone. Oh, Jesus. I don't even need a mic. My name is Shannon Paschal, and I manage a team of product managers on the workforce analytics team here at Workday.
Great. So, why isn't this moving?
Oh, I think because I hit the Zoom, so I think I just need to kind of, there we go.
Awesome. So we heard Denise talk a lot about data and how data is critical, and it's our comfort factor to all of us. So what we're going to do here today is to tell you how we at Workday Analytics are making use of that data. So data brings infinite possibilities, right? You can think of a million different things that data can do for you. But if you don your hat of a product manager and you think, even then there's so many possibilities. I could probably look at user click and download data that people are doing, or customers are doing on my product page, and see which format of delivery works best so I can adopt that in the future. Or I could even look at production support cases and see what the data is telling me there, so I can see which components are really buggy, and then maybe I could go schedule a bug bash with my dev team around it. So there's so many different things that you could do with data. But top of the mind to any product manager is to see what the usage of your product looks like, right? Because without product adoption, you're not going anywhere. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, leveraging data, specifically about adoption. And I'd like to take that one level deeper by talking first about why adoption should matter to you as a product manager. So to any of you that are already a product manager, I'd like you to consider this. If you're a product manager in the enterprise space today, what is it that matters the most? It's customer satisfaction and retention. Because most products today are being sold in a software as a service model, which means that you need to keep subscribing, you need to get those renewals going. And imagine, if you have a feature that's designed right and you've put it out there for your customer, then what they're going to be doing is that they're going to be adopting it and solving some pain point that they already have. So they're saving some time or resources or effort or something in the process. But if your customer doesn't even adopt that product or that feature, they're stuck with the same painful workaround. Or maybe they're looking for a competitor product. Neither is that good because it's not a successful renewal, nor is it a good CSAT score. So you're not going to be able to get that for your bottom line on renewal or profitability. Next up is customer partnership. All of you know that as a product manager, you're going to have to depend on your customers at various stages in your career. Maybe it's to recruit them for a design partner group. Maybe you want to validate some designs with them, right? Or maybe you want them to weigh in on a prospect call that you're having trouble with, getting to sign the lead deal with us. Or maybe you want them to go up on a stage with you at an industry conference and co-promote your product. For any of these, you need to get that customer partnership going. Only if the customer adopts your product, sees the value in it, are they going to be able to make that handshake with you. So better adoption is the cornerstone for customer partnership. Next is investment validation. As a product manager, it is imperative that you analyze your adoption data because it's a good indicator of whether or not all the effort and time you spent developing that feature, which after you threw so many resources even getting the word out and making these adoption efforts is still underutilized. Would you really spend that time and resources potentially putting more underutilized features out? Probably not, right? So that's where data comes in as well. And lastly, innovation success. All of you that are in enterprise products know that we have all these bleeding edge technology projects and initiatives that we want to put out. But if a customer is not already adopting what's already out there, all of those dreams that you have will just remain a dream. So this is why we think that adoption is important and leveraging data for that adoption is important. Now, the next thing that comes about, if I can get my clicker to move, is what did we do here at Workday Analytics Product Management? Once you've identified that leveraging data for understanding adoption and making adoption is imperative, you need to make it a priority, what do we do next? You need to identify the features that you want to raise the adoption levels on, right? How do you do that? First off, we start with what features provide the most value to your customers. You want it to be quick, you want it to be easy, and you want it to be most return on investment for them. So that's the first thing that you consider. Next, what features of these require the minimum effort to enable? Sure, it can give them a lot of value, but if it's going to take them man hours and services consultants and a bunch of other things to just turn on, maybe not the best one to go after first, right? So which of these require minimal or zero additional effort on the part of the customer? And next, are any of these features kind of like the stepping stones to build onto other features that can get adopted? Then that's where you should be starting first as well. Once we identified all this, it came to us that we needed to put together a prescriptive approach. Not just you analyze your customer adoption data, you also have the feature list that you want to focus on. We started to put together a prescriptive approach of what we like to call here at Workday, crawl, walk, and run. This is kind of a step-by-step approach to gaining incremental value. And what we do here is we try to think of foundational features or the basic building blocks of the product. And once you get the customers comfortable and familiar with these, then you can get them more comfortable on the configurable or more advanced features. And just to give you an example that all of us can relate to, anybody that's worked on a database management system knows of a database table. So if you were to think of just a cube that's already provided in your product, but you actually need to go and uptake it, meaning you need to turn it on to get value out of it, that's kind of like the crawl area right here. Once you do that, then maybe you can get someone to go and configure a report off of that. And once they're comfortable using all of that, that's when you want them to go in and take advanced features like maybe extending it, using it in an integration, and different things like that. So I guess what I wanted to say here is that feature adoption is the basic, most important step, because only if you get customers to see value in the product that you have today, they're going to stick with you. Once you have customer retention, then they're going to be the most willing ones to expand onto other products in your product portfolio. So then they can turn into advocates as well for you in the larger marketplace. So bringing that back to our discussion here in Workday Analytics Product Management, you made it a priority, you focused on what to do, but how are you going to do it? Alone? Probably not, right? And that's where I'm going to pass it to Shannon to talk about what we did next.
I talk really loud, and so that's why I tried to move the mic. I tried to move the mic down, but I guess, okay. Am I good? Okay, awesome. So we really leverage data to drive most of what I'm going to continue to do. And so from a functional perspective, we now have identified what are those things that we think are most important. We've looked at the usage data to say, hey, it's worth us focusing some energy and some effort on this, but we can't do it alone. Workday is a very large organization, and we've been growing since I joined Workday about 5 years ago. I was employee 3,600. We now have over 12,000, and so it's growing rapidly, which means there are a lot of new teams forming. And we've got to figure out who is the best person that we can, or best team that we can recruit to partner on this effort. And so what we started to do is, again, you can tell a lot of questions that we were asking or internalizing as we were going through and creating this program. First, we wanted to look at what does the makeup of our customers look like. Now that we know functionally what we want to do, we're seeing some data. What is the breakdown of our customers by region? How many medium enterprise customers do we have? How many large enterprise? How many are located in Europe or EMEA? And so we really wanted to understand what is that makeup, and then figuring out where are we seeing some of the largest gaps in adoption today. So really kind of trying to figure out what are those groups of customers that we see really aren't leveraging these features that we feel are kind of core to some of the value around workforce analytics. The last, and I think one of the most important things, and as you'll see, one of the things that's made this so successful is really finding a partner or team that is willing and ready to kind of take action and join you on the journey. We were really lucky that we actually found a group within our customer success organization that as we were actually going through this, they reached out and said, we want to partner on driving adoption. And we were like, we want to do the same thing. And we actually have the data that we can use to kind of go on this journey together. They were also willing to kind of try something new and different that hadn't been done anywhere else in Workday. And so that led us to our customer success organization in the West Medium Enterprise Group. And so a little background for those who maybe aren't in the enterprise software space. Medium enterprise customers are some of our smaller customers at Workday. And those people, especially when we think about reporting and analytics, those are kind of a very lean, small team within a company that is wearing multiple hats. And so they necessarily maybe don't have the resources to really do the investigation or figure out what are some of these new things Workday's delivering. They're really just trying to keep the lights on with what they have today. And so that was really a group, as we started to look at the data and look at the adoption, we were like, that's a group that can immediately start to get value, yet they're not taking advantage of it. Let's figure it out. And so then we launched a pilot. And I think there's like a delay, here. We launched a pilot program with that medium enterprise CSM group. And so another little background for those who maybe aren't familiar with customer success manager. So you're going to hear, and you kind of heard Denise say CSM or customer success manager. Those are people or a group within Workday that are really responsible for maintaining the customer relationship. So Denise talked about how important our customers are and their satisfaction. One of the things that we really use is like looking at how satisfied are our customers with Workday, and we actually track that every year, and it's a huge thing for us. And so this group is actually responsible for really making sure that a customer is getting their full value out of Workday. Whether that's understanding all of the new products that we have available, making sure that they're taking advantage of them, really fostering that relationship. So it was a perfect group for us to partner with because we actually needed those customers and that contact with the customers in order to have the outreach. But they're really busy. And like Denise mentioned, we have a lot of products at Workday. And so they kind of need to know a little about a lot of things. And in addition to that, typically in this group, each customer success manager manages about 25 to 30 customers at a time. And so they got to really know and be able to have those tailored conversations with customers. And to be honest, reporting and analytics isn't something that they feel really confident with. So it was kind of something that they would have maybe some generic slides that they would show their customer, but they didn't really want any of the questions because they were like, we probably don't have the answers. And so really our first goal was how do we educate the customer success managers on what the features are that we want to focus on? Why did we choose them? What are the baseline numbers that we're seeing? That tends to always get their attention when we're like, your customers have a 50% adoption rate. Why is that? Like, let's actually dig into that. And then we talk about the value of the feature. Let's actually show you some of the content that we plan to show your customers. And let's actually give you a cheat sheet of some of the frequently asked questions we think you're going to get and how to respond. So really educating that group before going out to the customers. And so what we did with that is actually we did a brown bag session with them. And so we were able to all get in a room together and go through the product, look at the demos, go through the slideware that we then packaged up really nicely for them as collateral so that they could leverage that content in their annual business reviews with customers. And not only that, we gave them the data of how their customers were using these features, and we almost gave it to them like a cookbook. Hey, we have feature X, Y, and Z. My customer's using feature X and Z, they're not using Y, and I'm getting ready to go into a conversation. Let me pull that content into my deck and share that with them and actually say, hey, based on how we see that you're using Workday, you're not getting value out of this. And that's a really strong conversation to have. It shows our customers that we're seeing, hey, we see that you're not taking advantage of this. Here's the effort it is to uptake. And it helps a customer success manager in 6 months from now, why haven't you uptaken the feature? What's going on? Is it still resources? Great. We've got some Workday services that we can bring in and help. There's some additional trainings that we have that you can do. And so it really helps to kind of focus that conversation. Next up, we've kind of enabled the group that we need to go out and kind of provide us with that customer information. We are now able to use that usage data to actually target an outreach campaign to those customers and invite them to an adoption webinar. And so we were able to actually not say, hey, this is just a random webinar that Workday Product Management is doing, come listen. We were able to say, hey, you've been identified as the person that runs workforce analytics. We see that you're not using this feature, and we're actually handpicked you to kind of invite you to this webinar. We had huge attendance by our customers. We actually did 4 adoption webinars, Manogna and I. We can do an adoption webinar in our sleep now, doing some of this, doing this. And so over the course of 4, we had hundreds of those customers in that West and Medium Enterprise group join. And it wasn't even that they just joined, it was so engaging. They were constantly asking questions. They were constantly wanting more information. And for us to go to those adoption webinars and really show them the value, demo how easy it is to set it up, and really kind of say, hey, you know, now that we see you're not using this, next time we check, we want to see you using it, or tell us why. Tell us what's going on. So that way we can figure out, and actually now the customer success manager knows not only was this customer using it or not, did they attend the webinar, and are we still not seeing them using it? And that's really where we can have those tailored focused conversations. But ideally, at the end of all of this effort, we want to see an increase in adoption, which is what we did see. And so in that pilot group, we actually saw an increase of 28% in that span of 4 months for those customers that we targeted. And so it's all great having the idea and having the freedom under Denise and our organization to really try this out and kind of not know if it was going to be successful or not. But it really helps when you want to expand this out to have some numbers showing that it's actually working. And that's actually what helped us get the buy-in to increase the program, which is what you're going to see in the next slide. But I think one of the other more important things as well is we're also starting to help empower those customer success managers to feel like they can actually talk about reporting and analytics, to feel like they can mention some of these features and not feel like they just have like a blank kind of stare and they're just like, I'll connect you with someone who knows it. So we're also trying to kind of empower that group of people, because guess what? We have more stuff that we want to focus adoption on. And so it really helped to get the buy-in. And so now, as we thought about that pilot and that kind of straw man, we played a lot of roles that there are other groups in Workday that actually can help roll out some of these programs. But we were really trying to start small, show a proof of concept that something can work, and then iterate, which is what we've been doing since the pilot. So the next group that we actually rolled out to is all of our medium enterprise customers, and we've got a lot. And now, actually, as we speak, we're actually in the process of rolling out and including all of our large enterprise customers as well. And so it's kind of been we've kind of been going in phases as we've been navigating the org structure and figuring out, what are those teams that we need to get buy-in. The data helps. The data is what really grounds our conversation, because it gets the teams to see, does this really matter? If I'm a large enterprise customer, they're probably already using these features. And for us to be like, not really in these certain areas, like they have great adoption in one, but these others where they're really kind of taking that product, the walk and the run, as Manogna kind of referred to, they're not really taking advantage of them. So why not? And that's actually helped us so much in getting them to kind of buy in and partner with us on this journey. I think one of the other things that we rolled out as well is a reporting SME, or subject matter expert group, in the customer success organization. So having each region in the customer success organization appoint someone as the reporting person, so we have that connection with them. They can ask us questions, and their peers can ask them questions as well. And so Manogna and I are only 2 people, so we can't answer everything for the hundreds of CSMs. And so it's, how do we enable them to kind of have that, like, within their own org, feeling like they have the confidence to do it. And what we're seeing is, for us, this is really just the beginning. We have so many features and functionality that we want to focus on driving adoption. And really, in my mind, the vision is that we're being really reactive right now. Some of these features have been out for years and they are not being used. As we think about building new features and functionality, how can we leverage the data we have about how our customers use existing features and functionality to actually line up some of these adoption things? So it's, as a feature is going live, we've already pinpointed who we feel could be great candidates to adopt, and be targeting some of that, so we're not kind of going back and trying to close gaps, so that customers are ready to uptake those more sophisticated features. I think one of the other really cool things as well, and we actually have some of the other product managers, is Workday is actually building some of this into the product. So how can we actually surface some of this up to our customers so they can see internally how they're using Workday and how they kind of compare to their peers and what they should be taking advantage of? I told you, Manogna, give me a mic and I'll just talk all day. So before we break up into table talks and kind of talk more about this, I just wanted to leave you with a few key takeaways. First is start small, but start. For us, thinking about this adoption program, it could have taken us months and months and months to try to coordinate across the different teams and get buy-in. We had buy-in from our leadership team. Hey, we need to be more data-driven. Hey, you're showing me the data, and you have this idea that you want to prove out, go for it. We found a team to partner with, and we can do it, which is kind of the next point. And the last is think outside the box. I think for us in enterprise software, Denise touched on this earlier, but it's, we typically build for a lot of customers. And so being able to have that white glove service where we could say, hey, customer X, we see you're not taking advantage of this thing that we think would be awesome and provide you a lot of value. Here's the content that the CSM can show you. Come to this webinar or whatever it may be. And so I think just one thing to kind of wrap up is, in the analytics org, I'm pretty biased, but we are really lucky, and we get to do and try out a lot of different things and have that space and freedom to kind of experiment, see what works, and iterate from there. So with that, I don't know if we have time for Q&A, but I think it's maybe some Q&A. Yeah. Nice.
So, any brave souls got some questions? I'm going to give you the mic.
So how easy or difficult was it to find the right customer success group? Did you focus on all of them in Workday? Or did you focus on just the ones that you were focusing for your features, or for your product, like finance or HCM?
Right, I guess you want me to take a stab and then you can add to it?
Yeah.
So I guess, like she was just mentioning the key takeaways, the idea is to start. The idea is to start small, because you don't want to go after every segment that you have in your customer base, because you could just end up nowhere. So what we did was to find a willing partner, someone that shared the same objectives, someone that also had noticed this trend that we need to do something about it, and then we started with them. The West ME CSM group, which was our pilot. So it's a good idea to see if the data is also pointing in the same direction, or if there is a group that's willing, that kind of aligns with the way the data is showing.
I think, yeah, and for us, hard to tell if the mic's on or not, yeah. For us, it was also, when I mentioned we looked at the makeup of our customers, that West ME group makes up about 30% of some of the customers. So it was kind of serendipitous in that we kind of were looking at some of that data, and we saw where there were huge gaps. And there, like, the CSM leader was actually like, hey, we want to do something, and we found the right group to partner with. But really, I don't know if we would have picked them for the pilot if we were like, we're not going to see a potential huge gain, or there may not be a big opportunity for that. So those were some of the things we were thinking about.
And when you say the data which you found out was by looking at the production bugs or by looking at user clicks, etc. Right? That's how you figured out that region was the one which was.
We actually have an internal instrumentation repository where we track the usage of our product features in each customer tenant in their environment. So based on that, we were able to see which of these tenants in their production is using feature A versus feature B. So once we had that data, then we went to that conversation with the customer success group.
And we joined it all. We joined the Salesforce and our logging data together in order to find the region and the customer success group. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to pass the mic?
And don't be afraid to speak up.
So building instrumentation is in itself investment, right? And it takes, it's a trade-off between building instrumentation and building product. So, and obviously putting a lot of hooks to put a lot of data in on adoption upfront is probably not really productive. You want to see first if they adopt and take some features. Do you have any rules of thumbs or approaches on when you start to build what amount of instrumentation?
I'm like, Denise, so one thing I will say is some of that's actually got us into, I don't want to say trouble, but it's right now we're actually trying to correct some of the things that weren't instrumented back when things were originally done. And so you're gonna do it eventually. And so I think it's one of the things now that we're trying to actually go back and do.
But I would say for that's for the features that have been out for a while, right? And so, there's always technical debt, right? You're going to have to pay. And I would say that is a form of technical debt. Yeah. But for the new features, absolutely, we're instrumenting from day one. And so, there can be varying levels of instrumentation, but we are instrumenting from day one because we want to know what is somebody using, right? And so, I think, again, I'll point to, yes, we have great design partner groups. And when we're in the kind of that very incubated mode, we can get away with it, right? Because you're meeting with the customer on a regular cadence. And so you're having that conversation. And a lot of times we give them what I like to jokingly call homework assignments, right? Go try out this feature and then give me the feedback, right? And so that's what our design partner groups typically look like. But once you start to expand outside of that design partner group, right? How do you know, right? Even if somebody aspires and in the design partner group, they say, oh, I love this feature. This is amazing. I'm definitely going to put it to use. They may not, right? And so I think not only is it just about driving adoption, but it's also enabled us to have conversations about our roadmap, right? Because if we are finding that they're not uptaking that feature as you planned, then you can have that conversation to say, why is it, right? Is it that in the design partner group you thought it was really valuable, but when you put it into practice, you found X, Y, and Z challenges? And so I think, again, having that data really enables us to do that. And so we are, as we expand outside of that kind of initial early adopter design partner group program, we are instrumenting. And so that is just our policy. That's maybe a harsh word, but our philosophy is maybe a better way to say it. I mean, if the analytics team isn't doing it, then it feels like, we should be the ones. More questions?
I got it.
There might be folks on the...
Okay, folks on the...
Yeah, sorry.
I hope that folks on the line can hear me fine. And my question is about what happened. Was it just increased awareness of customers, education of them, sharing more information, or was it separate features developed and rolled out for a specific set of customers?
I don't think it was the latter. See, oftentimes what happens is that people are so busy when they go live on a new product, they're just rushing to get their business going, and they don't have the time or the lenience to actually go in and see every little feature that is actually in the product. So it's a matter of making people aware, first thing, and making sure that you tell them it's already included in your subscription. Why would you not use it? So a lot of times that is what brings people around to the table and say, oh, I'll just go turn it on. Why would I waste it? So that was a lot of things that happened.
Thanks a lot. I'm really glad to hear this answer because we just had exactly the same conversation with our product manager and who is sitting right here. How we can increase adoption of what we got because users don't go there or don't try it out. And this is a great success story for us to strive to repeat? Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Glad it helped.
One last question. I think you've got the mic, right? So you get to be the lucky answer.
So thank you so much. And my question is that every customer is different, every enterprise customer. So when you reach out to them to tell them that, hey, you have been using these two features, and I guess that this new feature would be really good for you. How do you tell? Because every single customer is different. So how do you actually decide which new feature is going to be really good for that particular customer?
So in this case, and what we did was, if you think about workforce analytics and you think about at the essence of that what it is, it doesn't really matter. Yes, there are different flavors of it, but everyone needs to know their headcount and how that's trending. You need to know who's leaving the organization and who's coming in. And then you need to know all of the movement that's happening in between. And really, we didn't want to go into the weeds of the features, but that's at the essence of it, what it is in Workday. And so for us, it's really around like, are you doing that today? Like, did you know that this was actually available to you? Or maybe you're doing it outside of Workday because you didn't realize that it was actually available to you for free in Workday. And so it was really some of that. And so I think with this, it was very unique from an HR perspective, where these are kind of the foundations of HR. There are different flavors of it, but yeah. So I hope that's helpful, yeah.
One other thing I would add, which is just something that generally, again, it's kind of like something philosophically that we think about when you're selecting your design partner groups, not overfitting for one customer group. And so as we have, and right now, for instance, we have multiple early adopter programs going on in parallel for different features that we're building, different capabilities. And so we try to be very cognizant of, hey, let's make sure that we have representation in large enterprise and medium enterprise. Let's make sure that we have representation in the US and EMEA. Let's make sure that we have representation across multiple industries, because we don't want to overfit the product. And I think when you don't do that first step, analyzing your customer base, you run that risk of overfitting the product to any one particular group. So I think that is something also that we try to be very cognizant and very data-driven about. And I think that can help, prevent a situation where you're like, wow, this is only applicable to a very small set of customers.
Yep.